have our candidate from the 8th District, Jeffrey Carson.
Thanks. I'm going to just stay seated, though, so I can read some stuff, if you don't mind. Oh, that was great. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. If you guys don't mind, I know that we're just supposed to give a few minutes of introductions. I actually have a brand new stump speech that just came up with. I'd like to test it. So if that's all right with you guys. It should only be about 7, 8 minutes, but I really appreciate it if you guys would put up with that for the time being. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right in.
Yes.
I'm probably allergic to this speech. Let's hear it, though.
One more versus.
Okay. Good?
Might want to use the mic.
Yeah,
Think so?
It's hard to hear you.
Hold the button down.
I can hear her sneezing.
There we go. That's good.
How's
Oh, yeah.
that?
That's
All right?
better. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Einstein was once famous for describing the definition of insanity as this. He said, definition of insanity is continually voting for Republicans and Democrats, all the while expecting things to change for the better. At least I think he said that. He might have said that. I don't actually know. Folks, look, we as a nation, we face a lot of problems today. And the people we keep electing into office to represent us are obviously not solving those problems. For starters, let's talk about the drug war just for a sec. 5% of the world's population here in this country, 25% of the global prison population. We are #1 in the world at incarcerating our own people. In fact, today, we've got 500,000 people behind bars right now as we speak for nonviolent drug offenses. Still good? Okay. We spend $50 billion a year, actually just over, and to date we've spent about $1.3 trillion prosecuting this drug war. And all I ask is what have we achieved?
No, it's working.
Okay. My question is, what have we achieved with all that spending? When you look at the statistics, supplies up, demand is up, accidental deaths and overdoses are up. The addiction rate is flat. Incarceration is. How about I just talk loudly? Is that all right?
That's much better.
For now, we're getting another mic, but yeah, go ahead.
Just talk loudly.
Loud voices. Sorry.
Okay, so addiction rate is flat, and as I said before, incarceration rate is skyrocketed, has skyrocketed over the last 4 years. The drug war targets minorities in a highly disproportionate manner. It may actually be the most blatantly racist war we've ever fought. Speaking of war, the next big problem that we face is our hyper-interventionist foreign policy. I think the best way to describe where we're at today and give some context is just to do a quick before and after. The before will start September 12th, 2001. Obviously, we've just been attacked, but we know who our enemy is. It's Al-Qaeda, and we know where they're operating out of. It's Afghanistan. The region in general, the Middle East, is relatively stable. It's not perfect. You've got some bad actors obviously in charge, but you don't have failed states. For example, today, you've got Iraq as a failed state. You've got Syria, a failed state. You've got Libya, a failed state. Afghanistan is still a failed state. And when we leave, it will absolutely, undoubtedly fall back to the Taliban. You've got Al-Qaeda or its affiliates operating almost freely in several of these failed states because they're jihadi wonderlands today. Whether it's the Arabian Peninsula or in Western Africa with Boko Haram, with Eastern Africa with Al-Shabaab, or obviously the group that we've all been hearing a lot about lately, ISIS, operating from now an established caliphate in 2 sovereign states, half of Iraq and half of Syria. So if you look at the before and after, no one's going to try to paint the picture that it was perfect before, but I think it's clear that today the situation is much worse. And given the costs of the last 13 years of the war on terror, i.e. almost 7,000 U.S. service members dead, 50,000 plus casualties, U.S. service member casualties, hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians killed throughout the region, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. When you look at those costs, in addition to the financial costs of $4 to $6 trillion that's expected to be spent on these two wars, I think it's mind-boggling that we've spent all of this money and all of these lives to achieve chaos, because that is what I think we have today, a region of chaos. Excuse me. Our fiscal nightmare is the last issue that I'll touch on. And I really do believe it is a nightmare. $17.5 trillion in debt, averaging close to $1 trillion a year in deficit spending for the last decade, as well as obviously, and maybe the worst part is our fiscal gap, right? The unfunded liabilities we face, specifically related to the entitlement programs. Estimates are anywhere between $50 trillion and $200 trillion that we are in the red going forward. Nutshell is, all of this can really be boiled down to one thing. It's generational theft. We're spending this money today that we can't, on things that we can't afford, and we're leaving our kids with that. So given these problems, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that they're pretty serious and that we should be doing something about them. The question is, why aren't we, right? Why does it seem like these problems just keep getting worse and worse and worse, regardless of who we put in office? Well, I think the better question is, who's benefiting from the status quo? Woo! Right? Who's benefiting from the status quo? It's the vast majority of us are not benefiting from the status quo. But there are some powerful interests that do benefit, right? You want to talk about the drug war? How about the prison industrial complex?